celebrating 16 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Marcus Hall, Part 1.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people whose lives prove possibility. And Marcus, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you for having me, Al.
Welcome back.
I heard that, yes, welcome back.
This is our second interview. And, you know, when we went and had breakfast and we sat down and talked about this moment, I asked you if you wanted to tell your story. You said, I'll think about it. Because you came back to Knoxville a different person.
Yes, sir.
Because you've been through a lot. And I remember when I first asked you to be on the broadcast, I kind of chased you down. I would see you, hey, give me a minute, I didn't know what the hesitation was, but you knew what the hesitation was. Let's just catch people up.
All right.
Where have you been? What happened?
That's so funny that you even brought that up, and we hadn't discussed that between ourselves, but you would see me and you say, Marcus, come on the show. But you didn't know, but obviously I did, that I was, at that time, I was involved in an illegal gambling operation. And it's something that I had been doing for almost 10 years at the time. And I didn't want that ghost to catch up with me. Despite that, I went into a denim business and actually made it successful. I didn't want people to find out about that illegal gambling operation, and it was something that I kept putting off. I said, I'm going to quit this year, or I'll quit in 6 months. But the money was just too good for me at the time. I was addicted to that.
How crazy was the money?
It was crazy. It was.
What we saw in the paper, was that accurate?
It was pretty close. It was a little exaggerated, but for someone who, coming from my means, growing up, pretty much poor, making, $100,000 a week or so was, kind of a dream come true.
So that was the pace of the business, was about $100,000 a week.
Yes, you got it. We would clear
52.
That, yeah.
You would clear that.
Yeah.
There are 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah.
52 times.
do the math.
and it had been going on for 10 years.
It had been going on close to 10 years, yeah.
What are you thinking as you're doing this?
Initially, it was, wow, I've hit the lottery. But there's a lot of baggage that comes up with that, Howard. One of the things that, and I discussed this after this transformation, when the IRS came in on me and the government came on me, it was like the world had ended. And a year before that, as much money as I was making and success, so-called success, I was probably the most unhappy as I've ever been in my life.
Really?
The stress of it's coming, you just, it's coming, you just don't know when. And I found that I was addicted to the adrenaline rush. Getting away with something. Yeah, living on the edge. After you get used to making the money, it then becomes, wow, I'm getting away with something, you know what I mean? And then you catch a close call, but then you've got the situation where you've got guys who know that you're making this cash, and you would be surprised of how many times people have tried to rob me.
Did you ever come close to losing your life?
Several times. I mean, I could tell you stories that, and I'm ashamed of it actually at this point in time when I think about it. My oldest daughter, when we first got into the number business, I had 4 guys actually kick my door in, and she was 6 months old, and kicked the door in. And at that time, I didn't even have an alarm, a burglar alarm. And they said police. And so it froze me and my oldest daughter's mom. So I didn't reach for the phone. And then I realized they're coming in to rob me. And so I've got my 6-month-old child beside me, and her mother, and I'm helpless. I can't do anything but tell them, you know, where the safe is and where the money is. And so even at that point,
So they did rob.
they did rob me. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
How much did they get that day?
About close to $100,000.
So-
And I you know, it's funny. You kind of caught me off guard. I never told that story publicly, but close to $100,000. And that at the time was just,
That's just
yes, that was
spending
just,
change.
There you go. At the time, that was just money that they just happened to, that it was the easiest place to, you know, to tell them where to get it.
When we take a break, I want to come back and continue the conversation. This is Marcus Hall. Yeah, this is a story of amazing transformation and possibility. More in a moment.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
I say again, sir, I've got a really important meeting to get to, and it's just when I was saying that, I see 4 unmarked cars pull up, and it hit me. I was like, oh God, I know what this is about now.
For people who don't know, what is the numbers business?
The numbers business is basically the lottery. Before Knoxville had the the state of Tennessee had the legalized lottery, or even before the lottery was illegal, they call it the bread and butter or the milk and eggs game. Basically, there was a drawing. In the initial time, there would be a gamble hall or a pool hall, and they'd literally put the numbers in a basket and they draw while they had an audience, a 3-digit or a 4-digit. And the odds are, I'm getting to explain this, but 600 to 1 for a 3-digit and 5,000 to 1 for the 4-digit. We based our lottery off the Illinois lottery. So basically you watch the cable WGN, and they had it twice a day. They draw it midday, and then they draw a night draw. To verify it, you could see it for yourself from the Illinois lottery on, like I said, the count WGN, a Chicago station. You play, turn in a ticket, and if you win, you get your money. If you don't, you play again.
The volume of players, then, I guess you had people that would go out and people would give them a number, or they'd give them a number, and then you had a system to collect the numbers, and you knew which to pay and which you didn't.
Right.
And the float you kept, reinvested, did whatever.
You got it.
And so there had to be, did you have 1,000 people playing every day? Did you?
And like you said, it's in the numbers. If you don't have the number of people, then you don't stay in business. And the basis is that we've had close to, I guess about 1,000 or so people who play.
At some point when Tennessee decides to legalize the lottery, did you feel like, well, how does the state get to do this, but I don't get to do this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. In general, you've got ball boards, you've got the NCAA tournament, and so boards that people do. And so it definitely is, it's a conundrum why the government can collect money and taxes on gambling, but we can't do it, obviously.
So you knew you were committing a crime?
I did.
But did you feel justified because it wasn't a violent crime, or because it didn't involve drugs, or you felt like this is the cleanest, for lack of a better way to say it, this is the cleanest crime you can do and make money?
Wow, that's a good observation, Howard. In our past interview, you know, I got in trouble before. I actually caught a drug charge as a 20, 21-year-old. At the time, and we talk about this, my surroundings, I thought through, hey, this is the best way. And I actually had an older peer of mine come to me and go, hey, you need to leave that alone. This is where the money's at. And he got my attention. I didn't think it was a negative, because that's what I was raised around. I mean, we actually have friends and family members that leave church and go play a number. In the black community, that's just part of life. But, you know, obviously the government disagrees with that.
And boy, did they disagree.
Hey, at June 9th at 1:45 is exactly when I found out they disagreed.
How'd you get caught?
You know what? To this day, I don't know. I don't really have the discovery, but my guess would be, again, I was living on both sides of the fence, and I started and was successfully running Marc Nelson Denim, and I just think I brought too much attention to myself, Howard. Honestly,
Really?
I do. I just think
So when you start the jean company, you start that as a quote unquote legitimate business.
Right.
Did anybody perceive that you were trying to use that business to launder money from this business?
And of course, I mean, that's the government's position, that I was using illegal gambling money to launder the business. And my position was this: I never looked at the number business as an end game. I didn't think that this was going to be my career. I always inspired to open up a clothing line, to start a clothing line. And I did, and to be honest, and the government caught me red-handed. Take the money that I made from the gambling business and start Marc Nelson Denim. I absolutely did that. With the intentions of getting out of the gambling business.
This was your exit.
This was my exit strategy, absolutely, yes.
Kind of describe to me the day they came and the night after.
At that time, and obviously I remember it like it was yesterday, material things were the highlight of my life, but I just bought a Porsche.
We love Porsches.
I just bought a Porsche, and I was on my way to a meeting, actually to meet with a potential client that would have actually taken me over the top.
In the jean business.
And the actual, we were doing, we had transformed to uniforming business as well. So we're doing restaurant uniforming, business uniforming.
Right.
And so this would have, to just kind of keep money flowing in when there's downtime on the sewing machines. And so I had 2 exits, and I was going over my spiel through my head, and I know for a fact I generally sped, but this time I was not speeding. I got pulled over. And by Knoxville police officer, and then I initially said, you know, driver's license and registration. I grabbed those, and it never in my mind had I went over the fact that today is the day. I was very comfortable in my own skin. I was, you know, again, thought I was getting ready to take it to the next level. And he says, driver's license and registration. I give him my driver's license and registration. It takes him a few minutes, and at this point in time, I'm about 15 minutes before I'm late for this meeting. And then I put my hand out the car and I say, I'm sorry, but I do have somewhere to go, so if you're gonna write me a ticket, please do so, but I wasn't speeding, so what is this about? And he kind of paused and, you know, scratched his head. And then I said, I really do have to go. If you want to search the car, if you think there's an assumption of some drugs or whatever being in the car, you know, please, by all means, search it so we can, you know, I can get on my way. And then he opened the door and said, handcuff me and put me in the back of the car. And there was a point in time in my life that I said I would never be in another pair of handcuffs. But I wasn't living that life, obviously. I was running an illegal gambling operation. And it's June 9th, so it's hot in the back of this police cruiser. And I say again, sir, I've got a really important meeting to get to. And as just when I was saying that, I see 4 unmarked cars pull up, and it hit me. I was like, oh God, I know what this is about now. And sure enough, the officer said, hey, Mr. Hall, you know, we're going through your houses and all your business, and we are investigating you for illegal gambling, money laundering. And
so you had been under investigation for a while.
Obviously, yep.
You're sitting at the back of that cruiser, and you're thinking what? Wow.
And I actually had stepped out at this time, and then the IRS officer or agent, I literally, my soul left my body, and I'm looking down at myself going, you dummy, you dummy, you dummy. You just blew it. You just gave it all back. You just gave it all away. and they took off with my car and left me on the side of the road at the time because they didn't arrest me initially. They, obviously were gathering more evidence.
But they took the Porsche.
Yeah, they took the Porsche. I never rode in that Porsche again. That was the last day I rode in that Porsche. Yeah.
Well, let's take a break because I want to hear the follow-up about that evening. This is Anything is Possible. More in a moment.
Coming up,
And the judge came back and said 33 months. I'm like, whoa, like that's, how do you make it through this? I didn't see that coming at all.
Welcome back to Anything is Possible. We are knee-deep in an incredible story. It feels like a movie. I know it didn't feel like it at the time.
It didn't. It felt like a horror movie at the time. It did. It was, I saw my life just, at the time I thought, wow, this is it. This is it. This is it.
By the way, this is Marcus Hall. He owns Marc Nelson Denim. He was convicted for running an illegal gambling operation, and you went to jail.
I sure did.
We're going to talk about that in a moment. They leave you on the side of the road. You don't make the meeting. Did they take your phone?
They did.
So you don't have a way to.
I had no way.
And they got all your information.
Yes, they have all my information.
So you got that going on in your head. They're going through your
phones. They're going through my home. They're going through my business. And so, wow, this is wow. At the time, I was actually about to shoot for a reality show the following day, and so all the eggs have hatched now in a negative way. Everything that I had built for the last 7 or so years had just come back to bite me, actually, in a negative way. So when I thought that I was going over the top, I was actually sliding right back down the hill. And so, they left me on the side of the road. I had to walk across the street to a pay phone or a phone of a business and call an employee. And then she said, hey, what's going on? And so I basically kind of gave her the spiel because they didn't know. No one that worked at Marc Nelson Denim had any idea that I was running a legal gambling operation.
Jeez. And later in the story, I want to figure out why they stayed. Why did your team at Marc Nelson stay with you through all of this? So kind of walk me through what happens that night and what follows.
Well, it's, it was surreal, It's like, oh, man, you're wishing that this isn't happening, and it's very strange at the time. I tend to be an optimistic person, and so the first thing I did was get back to my building and business and talk to all my employees, and I still wasn't being honest. You know what I mean? This is it's a tax issue or whatever they have you, and they stayed. And I went to, just won an award from the Urban League. I was
there that night.
Almighty, yeah. And so I went to the Urban League and I had a real conversation with them. I just won an award for minority business through the chamber, and I went and talked to them and kind of expressed my apologies before anything had actually happened. And talked to my family, my oldest daughter, who, that was the biggest and hardest conversation.
How do you start that conversation? What do you say?
You just say, sit down. Because it was over the phone. She's still going to school in New Jersey. She goes to a boarding school, and I didn't want to worry her. You know what I mean? I didn't want her to, think that the world was coming to an end. So I told her, hey. Explained to her about the gambling operation and what that was, and I didn't think I was going to prison at the time, and so don't worry about it, we'll get through this.
But you went to prison.
I went to prison. And we can laugh about it now, but
it wasn't.
It was not funny. So that year prior to being sentenced was. I'm in the news every day, or and it's like you just kind of from a a guy who had a huge ego, it was leveling. And there were days, I mean, honestly, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But when I actually got attorneys and we kept working through it, we actually got to a point about 6 months afterwards that our business kind of, you know, got back together. You know, it's like any news is, you know, any kind of media is good because people were just interested in what's going on or what have you. We did lose one of our biggest retail customers. They immediately dropped us, but we fought back. But with the terms of, I wasn't going to prison. You know, I didn't think I was going to prison. And up until the day of sentencing, and the judge came back and said 33 months. I'm like, whoa, like that's, you know, how do you make it through this? I didn't see that coming at all. I didn't see it coming at all.
Well, let's stop hearing the story.
Okay.
Because you went to prison and you thought, okay, I'm gonna be an optimist. I need to pay my debt to society. I will pay my debt, I'll come back out, I'll do whatever. But there's something that happened to you in prison that shuts you all the way down.
Yeah.
And you're gonna find that out in part 2. We got to do a part 2. This is Marcus Hall, and this is Anything is Possible. We'll see you next time.